Today, we're talking about a criminal classified as one of the most intelligent individuals, as well as one of the most bloodthirsty people in the history of the United States. His childhood was extremely harsh, leading him to become a monster in every sense of the word. The criminal in today's story is Edmund Kemper III, who spread terror among the girls of California due to his targeting of this age group. His upbringing is the main reason that led him to choose the path of crime in the most gruesome ways. His inclination towards murder dates back to his childhood years, when his disturbed behavior began to manifest due to problems and crises within his family. These problems made early treatment of his psychological deviations nearly impossible. First, let us get to know the serial killer who shook the entire United States with his crimes and whom the police could only apprehend with his assistance. Edmund Kemper III was born on December 19, 1948 in California. His father was a soldier in World War II, and he had a failed and violent marriage with his wife. His mother was an alcoholic and is believed to have suffered from borderline personality disorder, a mental illness characterized by constant mood swings, low self-esteem, and in advanced stages, self-harm or harm to others. It seems that her son Edmund was the one who suffered the most harm, transforming him from an intelligent child into a serial killer. The father described his marital relationship clearly, saying, "Suicide missions in wartime and the atomic bomb tests in the Pacific after the war were easy compared to living with my wife." Throughout the day, the mother would abuse her husband and she refused her son, arguing that hugging him would make him turn into a homosexual. In 1957, his father abandoned his family and left him with his mother and two sisters. At an early stage of his childhood, the son exhibited strange and disturbed inclinations related to sex and killing by ritually dismembering his sister's dolls. He also forced his sisters to engage in bizarre games like the electric chair and gas chamber, pretending to take them to the place of their execution, as if he imagined where it would lead. On one occasion, when he was in the second grade, he chased his teacher. He followed her home while carrying his father's military bayonet. When his sister suggested that he kiss the teacher, he coldly replied, "If I kiss her, I'll have to kill her first." When he reached the age of 10, the mock killings could no longer satisfy his criminal instincts. He wanted to experience this feeling in reality. His first victim was the family cat. He buried it alive, and when it died, he dug it up and dismembered it. At the age of 13, he killed another cat, but this time he kept parts of it in his closet, allowing them to decompose until his mother discovered them. Edmund continued to kill pets, which terrified his mother. She isolated him from his sisters, fearing he would harm one of them, and forced him to live in the basement. She regularly scolded and demeaned him. She often said, "No woman could ever love you." At the age of 14, he ran away from his mother's house and went to live with his father in California, seeking affection and care from him. However, his father had remarried and his new wife was extremely fearful of the son. So, his father sent him to live with his grandparents in a mountainous area. They also suffered greatly because of him, as he redirected all his anger from his parents towards them. His life on his grandfather's farm was not better than living with his mother. His grandmother was strict with him and did not let him go wherever he wanted. In August, a dispute arose between him and his grandmother over the absence of his grandfather. He shot her using his grandfather's rifle and then stabbed her. When his grandfather returned home, Edmund shot him until he was dead. He claimed that he took this step only because he wanted to experience the feeling of killing his grandmother, whom he hated, and that he killed his grandfather so that he would not know that his wife had been dead. Edmund immediately called his mother after committing the crime and told her that he had killed his grandmother and grandfather. She advised him to surrender to the police, and he indeed followed his mother's advice and turned himself in. He was sent to the criminal insanity unit at the state hospital, where he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia accompanied by grandiose delusions. It was revealed that he had an impressively high intelligence. The doctors unanimously agreed that the real reason for killing his grandmother and grandfather was his anger towards his father and mother due to their neglect of him and his lack of love and affection for them. Therefore, he unleashed his anger through murder. When asked why he committed this crime, he answered, "I wanted to know what it feels like to kill." On his 21st birthday in 1969, despite objections from some doctors to his release because he still posed a danger to society, He was released from the hospital under the care of his mother, who was working as an administrative assistant in the University of Santa Cruz at the time. His release was conditional, and he had to undergo periodic evaluations by mental health professionals to determine whether he still posed a threat to society. However, the long period he spent in the institution, coupled with his high intelligence, gave him significant experience in dealing with these professionals. He knew what to say to them, and each time he was classified as a sane person who did not pose a danger to society. Edmund tried to live a normal life and even wanted to become a police officer, but he was rejected due to his height and size. Therefore, he decided to befriend police officers. He was very well liked by them, to the extent that he spent most of his time in restaurants frequented by police officers, assisting them with their investigations. This helped him gain knowledge about various investigations. On May 7, 1972, Edmund encountered his first two victims, Anita Luchessa and Mary Ann, both 18-year-old university students. They signaled him to stop and give them a ride home, which was a common practice at that time, where people would signal drivers to give them a ride along the way. He stopped for them, and they got into his car. He drove them to a nearby wooded area with the intention of sexually assaulting them. However, he became terrified and ended up stabbing and strangling the girls to death. He then placed their bodies in the trunk of his car and drove them to his home. On the way, he was stopped by a police officer due to a broken taillight, but the officer did not search the car. Upon reaching his home, Kemper had sexual intercourse with the corpses, dismembered them, and put the body parts in plastic bags, which he then discarded in a ravine near Loma Prieta Mountain. On September 14th, he followed the same modus operandi with his third victim, 15-year-old Korean dance student Aiko Koo. He strangled her with a scarf she was wearing, sexually assaulted her, and then took her to his home. He continued dismembering her body and disposed of the body parts in different locations. In early 1973, due to financial difficulties, he moved in with his mother in her house on the campus of Santa Cruz. His crimes continued as he killed 3 university students whom he selected from the same campus. He buried the head of one of the victims in his mother's garden and positioned it facing his mother's bedroom. He justified this action by saying, "My mother always wanted people to look up to her." Despite the heinous crimes Edmund had previously committed, in April 1973, his crimes reached their peak of brutality when he bludgeoned his sleeping mother's head with a pointed hammer, causing her immediate death. He then decapitated her and engaged in necrophilia with her severed head. He used it as a dartboard, spending an hour screaming at it. He cut out her tongue and larynx and discarded them in the garbage dump. He did not stop at killing his mother. He also invited his mother's close friend Sally Haylett to the house, killed her, stole her car, and headed to Colorado. He believed that he could claim that his mother and her friend went on vacation together. He was confident that he would soon see the news of his double murder in the headlines. When he didn't hear any news about the crime, he called the police from a public phone booth and confessed to killing his mother. At first, the police didn't believe that their dear friend who helped them in some investigations could be a murderer. This provoked him and pushed him to confess to all the crimes he committed to get their attention. He began describing things that only the real killer would know and justified turning himself into the police by saying, "My main goal is gone, so I said to myself, well, this is enough. Damn it." He was arrested and tried for committing 8 first-degree murder crimes. He attempted suicide twice and requested the death penalty, but he failed both times. He was sentenced to 7 concurrent life sentences in prison. Edmund Kemper III was imprisoned at the California Medical Facility alongside other infamous serial killers, Herbert Mullen and Charles Manson. They both remain in prison to this day. While in prison, Edmund Kemper III willingly participated in several interviews with journalists and police officers. A series called Mindhunters was made, and as mentioned in the series, Edmund Kemper's detailed testimony and his description of his mental state during the commission of the crimes were fundamental in shaping the investigative approach in tracking serial killers to this day. Edmund Kemper is considered an ideal prisoner at the California Mental Facility. He schedules appointments for other inmates and their sessions with psychologists. He also spent over 5,000 hours in his cell, converting books into audio files for the visually impaired. Despite being considered an ideal prisoner, some of his statements made on several television programs indicate that he is not remorseful for the murders and torture he committed. He said, "Living things were destroyed at the lowest level. small animals, insects, then animals, and finally humans. His brother, who uses an alias to protect his identity, said, "It's funny Kemper is completely socially disturbed. He can look you straight in the eye and tell you how sorry he is for everything he has done, while at the same time planning your death, and you would have no idea." Despite the conclusion of the story, this killer is still alive at the age of 74. So, the next time a stranger stops you to offer you a ride, think carefully. And remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and activate the bell button to receive all the latest updates.